And so we have here today with us Jeremy Stevens from Deloitte, who will be the moderator, with Alejandro Gutierrez from Defactor Labs and Joachim Lebrun from Tokeny. So I'll let you the stage.
Check, 1, 2, and 2. Thank you very much. And good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here. We hope you had a great lunch. And of course, thank you two to be here today. It's a wonderful day, and I'm pleased to be here with you all and with this great panel. My name is Jeremy. I'm the manager of the Web3 and blockchain team at Deloitte France, a consulting and auditing firm. And today, we will discuss about real-world assets, tokenization, and of course, how the ERC3643 will bring compliance to all of these. And to do so, I would like to thank you, both of you, again, to be here to talk with for the next 45 or 50 minutes together. And maybe to start, I have some note of you to present yourself, but don't hesitate to jump on if you have more to add, of course. Let's start with you, Joachim. So you're the head of blockchain of Tokeny. Tokeny is a leading tokenization platform backed by the Euronext. Is that correct?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, cool. And I have a great number. I wrote that you are having tokenized most than $28 billion in assets over the last 6 years. Is that correct too?
Yeah, it's correct. So
that's huge.
Most of it was in the last few years, like 2 years maybe, because it took a long time to start, let's say, because we were very ahead of this technology. We had this idea of security tokens very early, and there was just no market at the beginning. So we had maybe, let's say, a hard time at the beginning as a company, but now it's really taking a lot of steam and going very fast. So more and more business coming, and as every big actors of the financial sector is saying right now, tokenization is the future, and it's going to be part of the future of finance. Yeah.
That's great. You don't know the bear market. And you're also the creator of the ERC3643 and the chairman of the working group at the ERC3643 Association to help, of course, the developers to implement these standards. And you, Alejandro, you're the co-founder at Defactor and the CEO of Defactor Labs. You are an early adopter of the real-world assets, DeFi and tokenization. And you work with great actors that's very impressive, like MakerDAO and Centrifuge. And to date, you have funded more than $70 million transaction in the supply chain finance, and you, of course, using the liquidity of DeFi, and you're also including the running one of the first real-world assets vault in MakerDAO.
That's correct. Yeah. So we have been in the real-world asset space basically since inception. I don't think that term of real-world assets existed actually at that point when we started. We're just trying to find alternative sources of liquidities for real problems. And by chance, we stumbled across the guys from MakerDAO. We were one of the first companies or teams actually, to use liquidity or DAI to finance, to transact in the financial space. And from that point onwards, it's just what it brought us here, right?
That's very great. That's very impressive. And it's amazing because you have two complementary experience, great experience, more technical and more, I would say, business and development. So that's pretty great. So maybe let's jump in this discussion. But first, maybe let's begin with, for all the assembly, to clearly understand what is the ERC3643. I think it's very important. I think I turn on you, Joachim. Can you explain us more the story of these standards that you created? in simple terms, what is it and how it works?
Yeah, definitely. And that's also why we created small slides, even if it's a panel, because it's a bit technical and to give you a better overview. So the ERC3643 is a token standard on the Ethereum programming language Solidity. So it's an extension of ERC20. So ERC20, I guess that everyone knows, is the basic token structure. What is important is that ERC3643 is fully compatible with ERC20 because it's an extension of it. So every single platform that is compatible with ERC20 is also compatible with ERC3643. But the main difference is that ERC3643 is a permission token, so you cannot just send it to any wallet. It has to be, because it's supposed to represent securities, it has to be compliant. It has to respect the compliance at every step of the way. And that's why we implement that at the blockchain level, at the smart contract level. So every single transaction happening on ERC3643 is compliant by design. So you have two parts of that. One is about the eligibility of the investor. So the investor eligibility is checked by the smart contract. And also the compliance, which is related to the rules of the offering itself. So for example, if you want to say that there is a maximum number of investors in a specific country, such as what you can have in the Reg C, Reg D in the US, then you can enforce that at the smart contract level in compliance. And that's where the power of ERC3643 comes, is that it's a very versatile standard. You can customize it in any way or form that you want, and that's why we use it. So as you see here, so the goal is to provide a harmonized standard for issue, manage, and transfer securities on the blockchain. So we already, as we said already, tokenized 28 billion euros of assets. The standard, as it's an ERC, is fully open source, of course, but the implementation of this standard is also fully open source. It's provided by Tokeny under the T-Rex name, which was the name of the standard before ERC3643. So you can access it on GitHub whenever you want and use it as you please. So this T-Rex standard is like a gift made by Tokeny to the whole blockchain community, because first, it's fully open source and fully documented, and also it's fully audited by Haken, which is a very well-known company for auditing. So basically, we provide that for the blockchain community, and if you want to use it, feel free to use it. We, of course, are the main user of this standard at the moment, but we created the ERC3643 Association to get this standard in the most hands as possible, let's say, and that's really our purpose. The purpose of Tokeny is not to keep the hand of on this standard, is to share it with as much parties as we can to make a standard for the industry, because industry needs standardization, and ERC3643, we believe, is this standard. And it can still evolve, of course, and that's also why we created this association, is that every participant can come with their own ID and push these IDs, and if the IDs are relevant, we can always make modifications. So, as I was saying before, the ERC3643 is coming with the permission tokens and the on-chain identity. So I didn't speak really about the on-chain identity yet, but when I speak about the eligibility side of the standard before, I'm speaking, in fact, about on-chain identities. So we are based on ERC3643, which are standards for identity management on the blockchain. It's every single stakeholder in the ecosystem gets its own identity smart contract that is deployed and that they can interact with and use to access to different offerings, different tokens, and even to permission DeFi in the future. So that's really the idea. So there is two different steps in the distribution of tokens, of permission tokens like this. You have the primary distribution in which the issuer is minting the tokens to the wallet of the investors. So for that purpose, the issuer need to make the onboarding and be sure that every investor is eligible and respect the rules of compliance, and then mint the tokens on their wallet. And after that, when it's done, you have the secondary market in which the investors are transferring tokens between each other in peer-to-peer. And this part with the ERC3643 happens with zero third party involved. So that's very, very important because it's really groundbreaking, let's say, compared to the traditional finance in this regard. But here it can be achieved because of this on-chain compliance mechanism and this on-chain eligibility checking that is done automatically at every single transfer. So when an investor tries to transfer tokens to another investor, all the rules of compliance and eligibility will be checked automatically, and if everything is okay, then the tokens can be transferred. Yeah, so we can switch to the next one. So yes, how to identify the token holders. So I spoke about it briefly before. So we create the on-chain identity. How these on-chain identities can be used, you have 3 steps regarding this. So the first step is that the issuer or any trusted third party that need to be involved in the process has to collect the data from the investors, and then this trusted third party issue a claim, which is credential, like identity credential on the on-chain identity of the investor, and then the investor can use these credentials on-chain at any moment when they need to use them to access either the tokens in the case of ERC3643, but it can be also used for accessing DeFi or any kind of platform that would require this. What is also important to note is that these credentials are not showing any private data on chain, so it's just hashed data that are published and links to external data, off-chain data that is secured by off-chain data means. So access to the data is made in a classic way, let's say, but on the blockchain you have no way to find private data, and that's also one of the powerful features of this on-chain identity system.
Thank you very much, Joachim. Thank you for this presentation. Clearly, you develop a tool. It seems that you develop a tool that is very useful for big corporation and institution to help them to go in this market and to develop the tokenization market. So that's pretty great. That's the needs that they needed, the compliance, this kind of KYC, etc. That's pretty great to see that.
Yeah, definitely. The whole architecture of this protocol comes from discussions that we had with regulators, with big financial institutions, and with our clients, which are token issuers, so securities issuers. And they had a lot of different concerns that were addressed by this standard, and that's really how the whole standard was developed. It's not us that developed that on our side. We went to the industry to discuss with all the actors of the industry and to try to adapt that and translate it into code. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Maybe let's take a step back. We have now, thanks to you, Joachim, a clear understanding or a great overview of what is the ERC3643. But maybe let's take a step back and an overview of, we are talking about real-world asset tokenization. But can you tell us more about the tokenization market? What is your point of view? What's the last evolution that you saw? Because you are working in this ecosystem. So what's your opinion on all of that globally? Maybe, Alejandro, if you want to begin on that.
Thank you very much for that, Joaquin. It's like, it is really amazing, right? When you see the deep down into the technology that allows us to do what we're doing at the moment. And seeing that explanation is fantastic, so thanks. Look, from the tokenization perspective, I believe that tokenization is just adding a different dimension to financial services. And the reason why I'm saying that is if you start understanding the different benefits that this technology can bring into operations, it's amazing, right? So you have full traceability, you have visibility of what is happening, you have an easier way actually to just do reconciliations, you have auditability as well in there, and many more that I cannot remember at the moment. When you're starting just getting all these different characteristics of the technology together, you know that is a chance to just create financial systems that are more inclusive, and they're going to be actually able to just change the way or change the paradigm in the financial space, right? When is that going to happen? I don't know. It might be in the short term. It might be in the next 10, 15 years. Then the other component that is important to mention is how tokenization is democratizing the chance for investment. And that's interesting, because there are a lot of products right now that you can invest that 10 years ago it was impossible for normal Joes that are walking on the streets. And I think that's going to just add in a lot of value to this technology as well, right? And it is hard. Yeah, it is hard. UI, UX is not there yet, that's correct. But at least there is a way, and that way was not there before. So now you're starting going into the different examples and business cases around, well, in our case, supply chain finance, tokenizing debt for supply chain finance is a perfect example. It's a huge servicing gap. It's around $5 trillion. And these solutions actually are just providing a path for maybe just starting closing that gap. And then you go into liquid assets like real estate, like a whiskey, like wine, art, and so many others, right, that we haven't even explored. Well, I think the space is starting getting really interesting, right? And like it's funny because you're starting seeing now all these rhetorics about, yeah, tokenization is a solution for everything. No, it's not. But at least actually you're starting showing some paths into how things are going to be looking in the near future. And I think that's interesting. There's a lot of stuff that is not solved yet, especially when you're starting just having that mix between DeFi and real world. But at some point we will be heading there. And I think the future is promising, if you ask me.
Clearly. I do agree with you with what you said, clearly. Maybe Joachim, do you have an opinion on that? Do you want to add something?
I'm not sure about what I could bring in that regard because I'm more technical guy. But the market of tokenized securities is definitely going to be huge. As Alejandro was saying, you can tokenize basically everything. And to come back to our topic of ERC3643, the beauty of this standard is that it can be adapted to any type of asset. So we can tokenize the same way with the same standard bonds like you did, or art, or whiskey, wine like you were mentioning, real estate. Whatever you want to tokenize can be tokenized with this standard, as long as what you want to represent is fungible, because the standard is an extension of ERC20, so the tokens are fungible. So you cannot have one token that is different than another one, but that's the only restriction that you have. So if the thing that you want to tokenize is possible to be represented by shares, let's say, and that every share is fungible with the other ones, then you can tokenize with ERC3643.
Brilliant, yes. Thank you very much for your insights. Thanks to that, we have a great vision on the market and great opinions on that we truly believe. I think you work together, Defactors Labs and Tokeny, on something. So if you may, let's go deeper now on the use case of the use of this ERC3643, and let's talk more about an insurance bond that you perform together in order to have more vision on how can we use this ERC3643 and how it's bring compliance. Let's go to the use cases. So I think it was 1 or 2 months ago now, this was on the news. Yeah. First, maybe to just explain more about the story of the alpha bonds, what is it, etc. Can you tell us more about this insurance? What is the storytelling of all this financial operation? Maybe Alejandro.
Yeah. So at some point, I think 6 months ago, we were actually deciding from the business perspective what to do, and the opportunities or the options were two. Either we were going retail to just find alternative liquidity for supply chain financiers, or we're going into the institutional route. And the institutional route, or we chose institutional route because when we're talking here about trillions of dollars in gap, well, it's going to be really difficult to just raise that in the retail space. So we're starting just doing our research and understanding, okay, what would be the best way to just create a product that has the best of both worlds, right? It has all that structure, that's trustworthy, and backup of that financial institutions will like, but at the same time, all the technology that is going to allow visibility, traceability, prevent risk of fraud, of risk, and so on. And we created this solution that is the Alpha Bond, right? And we work with Tokeny on it. We work as well with the guys from Black Manta. And the idea was, okay, let's create the first institutional grade and fully regulated DeFi product in Europe. And that's what we did, right? So we created a $100 million bond coming out of Luxembourg, fully regulated, backed by a BaFin compliant brokered and auditors in Luxembourg. And the idea was just, look, let's create a product that tastes, smells, and looks like something traditional, by just having the perk on the side that is just that DeFi rails and all the different perks that the technology brings.
That's very great, thank you. Because these alpha bonds show that we talk about tokenization, real-world assets, issuing bonds, financial instruments, and blockchain, but we talk about that for more than years now, and that's very great to see, to can read and impress that it's possible now, and you can have more than $1 million on the blockchain for issuing bonds, and there are institutions that want that, so that's very great. That's very great to see that. Thank you very much to help to develop this ecosystem. And so, if we want to continue and go deeper on this operation, can you explain how this issuance of the alpha bonds was performed, notably with the standard ERC3643, notably on the blockchain, the Matic blockchain, the Polygon blockchain? How all these were performed? Is what's difficult? Do you have issue, etc.? Maybe for you, Joachim, more on technical part.
Yeah, of course. So for the issuance of these alpha bonds, basically, as I was saying before, for us, Tokeny as a software provider and as deployers of the ERC3643 on the Polygon blockchain, it's done the exact same way as any other type of asset. So at the blockchain level, you don't have any difference between these bonds or tokens that represent real estate or art or anything. Because the token standard is so versatile that you can just adapt it to any type of use case. And it's really definitely great to see this kind of use case coming to the standard, and that you are using this standard is really a great use case. And I believe that we will see a lot more in the future. But yes, that's really something interesting about the standard, is that you can tokenize whatever you want. And in this case, when you use the standard also with the compliance system, you can just adapt the compliance with different bricks that you come and plug inside. So each of these compliance rules are different, separate smart contracts that you can just plug inside of the standard and make them apply the rules of compliance. So if, for example, you have the compliance rules that evolve in the future for these bonds, you can always change the rules at any point of time. And that's, I believe, also very great for this kind of use case, because I'm not sure that the legal framework is yet completely ready for this type of asset. I believe that it will evolve in the future, and being on a standard like this one, you can adapt all the time.
Okay, I think that's really interesting, right? Because from our perspective, the big problem was never with the technology or the framework from the regulation point of view, right? And funny enough, the problem was with the education of the customers. Because what they believe is the tokenization of these assets is going to just go into a different legal framework than MiFID. But these things are MiFID, so they're fully regulated. So realistically, there's not much there that you can do, but it's actually just teaching them, look, the fact that we are using blockchain realms doesn't mean that you are going to be just changing the perspective from the regulatory perspective, point of view. And that was what took most of the time for us to just teach people this. And it's crazy. Like now, if you're starting to see this from the big picture, right? Like, because you have the tokenization of these assets, right? But then you move in that supply chain into where those funds are going to be used. That's a different story. That movement of capital from those bonds into actually the final use by financiers, by SMEs, by other companies. That's the tricky bit, right? But realistically, that's never covered on this side of the captive funding, right? And that's when people get a little bit confused on it. Like a bond is a bond, and securitization rules have been there for some time now. And this is just applicable exactly the same. The fact that you're using technology is irrelevant. So education, I say, like when you go back into this, into DeFi and so on, education is a big piece of what we have to do every single day.
Clearly, totally. Education is the major point on that. You clearly understand that, spread the knowledge on all this technology, on the advantage, and that's more and more. We have more tools to help to develop that and to perform this kind of operation very easily, and to improve this, thanks to, for example, with the ERC3643. Yes, clearly, totally agree with you, Alejandro, and what you say exactly, Joachim. Thank you, both of you, for this clear understanding of this insurance. I don't know if you want to add something on this alpha bonds use case, or if you have other things that happen when you operate this operation, etc. Or what are the next step on that, etc.
from our side, well, the bond has been launched a few months ago. It was launched actually in June in Money 2020. That's when we launched it. Surprisingly, there's a lot of really traditional people interested in the product. And it's funny because depending on the perspective of people, you have some DeFi hardcores that say like, but that's not DeFi. Well, it's as DeFi as much as you can. Like if you are like working in the real world asset space, you will never find a fully decentralized solution. It doesn't exist yet. As soon as you're touching real world assets, you need to back up everything with agreements because it's not going to stick on court. It's like if you go to a court with NFT, it means absolutely nothing, right? So I think it's great just to see these first steps and you're seeing an evolution, right? And just kind of imagine what is going to happen in the next 5 years, right? From the development perspective and when courts are starting recognizing the power and the value of having NFTs and that actually you can just gauge agreements by technology. So that's what I believe is starting getting really interesting.
Clearly. Thank you very much. So thank you because thanks for all that. We have a clear understanding on what is the ERC3643. We have a vision on the market actually of the tokenization. And we also talk about a clear use case on how did we use these standards and how can we issue some bonds on blockchain. So maybe more globally, take another step back, more globally, how do we see the future, the next month, years, decades of real-world asset tokenization, and notably with these standards, of course? What's your vision on that? Maybe who wants to come to start?
Okay, I will start. So, as I said before, I believe that the future for tokenized securities will be great. Like everyone is agreeing on that, but I would like to add some points on that. Like at the moment, we have already the whole infrastructure and we provide all the tools to tokenize the securities as such. So you create the transferability on some financial assets that before that were very complicated to transfer, and you bring also the possibility to access different type of markets because the issuance is global. It's on the blockchain, so it's really accessing global ecosystem. But we are not yet at the stage of liquidity, and that's a very important step that, to be frank, is not yet achieved at all. So we don't have liquidity yet on any of these security tokens. It's starting, so you have a lot of different platforms for exchange of security tokens or DeFi for security tokens that are currently building, but they are still really in their infancy, and there is nothing really concrete yet. So that I think will be the future. The close future will be the access to CeFi and DeFi of the security tokens. So that's already a super big step. When you have this liquidity, I think that will be the enhancer of the whole shift of the market. So when you have this liquidity that is there, then basically that's where you will be able to achieve this vision of having all these illiquid assets going on the tokenized side. So, yeah.
Yeah, like I think that's a great point. Liquidity is still not there, especially in secondary market. It's not there. It's almost non-existent, and that's probably one of the reasons why people have been people have been talking about tokenization of real estate for how long? 5 years or so, and people, why is that not happening? Well, because there's no liquidity. So until the liquidity is not there, in a way, we are just testing. We are testing the market and exploring and understanding what is to do next. And similar to that, I think when these technologies are coming, we are really good at overestimating in the short term and underestimating in the long term. And probably that's what you are seeing there. Like, well, yeah, this is going to just fix everything and so on. And in the short term, it's going to be fantastic. But No, it's not. It takes time. It takes time to consider, like, to get the trust of big players. It takes time to just build ecosystems. And well, I think all the movement on the big players in the last 2 months, I think is great validation. I think people will come and will start playing in the ecosystem, and that will have a radical change on that liquidity that is needed just to really prove this point, right?
Okay. Do you want to add something?
Yeah, so definitely this liquidity part is the real enhancer. And I would add another point is about the legal framework. So I believe that the legal framework will evolve a lot in the future, in the coming years. We at Tokeny, we are based in Luxembourg, and it's a very small country, but very quick to change on these topics, especially because they are so small and that the government is very accessible, the regulators as well. And with Tokeny, we've been discussing with the regulators for years already, with other actors of the blockchain ecosystem. And we all together achieved the fact that some laws have passed in Luxembourg. For example, in Luxembourg, the blockchain can be considered as a primary registry, which I believe is also something that will unlock this shift to the decentralized finance. Is because in most jurisdictions you cannot consider the blockchain as a valid primary registry. But in Luxembourg, for example, when you do a transfer with ERC3643, you are sure that everything is compliant by design, and so you can consider that the transaction is final. So you don't need to reflect this transaction anywhere. When the transaction happens on blockchain, is final in the books of the token issuer, and that's very important as well. So that I believe will be the future as well, is that the tokenized securities are recognized as securities, really securities, in the proper way, and that transfers of securities on chain are considered final.
Thank you very much. So if we just make a summary of all of that, liquidity, regulation, great framework, and as you said, also take the time that we need to have all the people, all the institutional on board in order to ensure that this ecosystem will have a sustainable growth. That's a great vision. That's a sustainable growth for this ecosystem to ensure that it will grow and ensure that we help the ecosystem and the world. Thank you very much for that. I think we are out of time. Going to be out of time. Do you have maybe any last word to finish before to leave the floor for the assembly or for the next steps?
Yeah, so I forgot also about the future, that when you go more in the technical aspect of this, because we speak about liquidity, about legal framework, when you go more on the technical aspect, the fact is that at the moment you have a lot of different blockchains that are coexisting, and this also will be part of the future, is the harmonization of all these blockchains together with protocols such as layer 0, for example, which allow you to make messaging between blockchains and to have these bridges and everything. So that's a part of the future. And yeah, for the last word, I was very pleased to have this panel with you. It was very interesting. And yeah, I believe the ERC3643 is just in its beginning right now. It's a standard that is going to evolve in the future with the input that we will have through this organization that we launch with all very different actors from financial system, from regulators everywhere. So we have, for example, Invesco, which is part of the consortium. We have Apex, we have Euronext, very big actors that are trying to push this standardization forward. And yeah, I believe that the standardization of securities on blockchain is coming.
Thank you very much, Joachim.
From my side, I think we're at the crossroad now that we are starting proving that this technology actually works, and there is a lot of future on it. But what I said always is that it would be a shame to use this technology only to enhance or improve whatever system is in there, because I think the current system is not working. So it would be a shame just to see all the effort that we put not to build a more fair ecosystem, more inclusive, and something that can disrupt and just build through the years, right? Like, I don't consider that the ethos of the technology was created just to enhance what it is right now. So just kind of what I said to everybody is just try to think what is the solution for the next 20 years, and let's build something that will help people realistically. Let's just think about building solutions that are going to help people.
Clearly. Thank you very much, Alejandro. Thank you very much, both of you, for this discussion. Thank you.
Hello.